Welcome in, everybody. It's time for Around the Felt. Tonight's episode, the Cincinnati Bengals. What a season it was. You know, it was great for fantasy football, maybe not so much for real football for the Cincinnati Bengals here. A 9-8 season. We're going to talk about the 2024 season and how we think they should improve in the offseason heading into 2025. But in all reality, they're just going to have to re-sign all their dudes outside of Joe Burrow. But Reagan, how you doing tonight, my friends?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to talk some ball, ready to talk some Cincinnati Bengals. You know, one of the more interesting teams in this league because, you know, a lot of people think they, you know, when you got a quarterback like Burrow and some weapons on the offense, it's like, hey, this is a team that, you know, could make it to the Super Bowl in any given year. I mean, it's a team we've seen in the Super Bowl. So, you know, obviously it was a little bit of a down year. So I'll get right into, you know, my perspective and my grade of the team. But I gave him a D. I think it was a terrible season. I was tempted to give them an F, but I'm like, you know what? They still did go 9-8. But, you know, last year, the whole excuse, or 2 years ago, you know, Joe Burrow dealt with injury. It's like, all right, you know what? They missed the playoffs, but they only had Burrow half the season. Well, this year he was healthy. And I understand the defense was terrible. But at the end of the day, and I know, you know, this isn't anything we can prove, but, you know, if you look at the guys that Joe Burrow is regarded in that category, there's the Lamar Jacksons, the Jalen Hurtses, the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes, they ain't missing the playoffs, you know, and you could say they have a better roster on paper, but whose fault is that to blame but the GM? So whatever excuses you want to make for the Bengals for why they missed it this year, that's on the general manager for not putting together a competent enough roster and focusing too much on the offense. And I mean, I'll get into it a little bit later, but I think it would be a mistake to give T. Higgins all that money because I think, you know, no matter what, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase can do enough to get it done offensively. And clearly this year on defense, I mean, that was the big issue. I mean, Trey Hendrickson was a stud. You know, you could have argued he was the deep boy. I actually thought he was going to win with the amount of sacks he had, but I guess because of how bad the defense was, it's kind of hard to give him the deep boy, which isn't fair per se, but I guess it's like giving the MVP out. You're not going to give it to a like Joe Burrow. You're not going to give him the MVP, even though his numbers were through the roof. So I guess it's probably why he didn't get deep boy. But to me, it's a failure of a season. You know, this is a team that should have been in the playoffs. You know, there was no Joe Burrow injury to point to where it's like, all right, I'll give him a pass. So it's a D. And maybe I'm being a little high with the D. But I'm curious, where did you land on it?
I agree with you. I gave him a D as well.
Okay.
So, you know, you look at this team and it's like, yeah, they were really fun offensively. 9th total, 1st in passing, 6th scoring offense. Burrow was phenomenal, like probably the best stats of his career. Jamar Chase, Triple Crown. When T. Higgins was healthy, he was awesome. Chase Brown, a lot of bright spots. But you're a team with Super Bowl aspirations. And all that for what? To miss the playoffs, to go 9-8, to start off slow yet again, to feel like you're digging out of a hole the entire season. It just seems like we have this conversation every year after they bust everyone's survivor pool in week 1 or 2, when they lose to bad teams that they should beat. You know what I mean? It's and you know what? It's not going to get any cheaper. It's not going to get any easier. Because I know we're going to get in the offseason, but you're sitting here and Burrow's putting this public pressure on ownership. Like, we need our guys. We need to re-sign our guys. And it's like, I don't recall a quarterback in recent memory being this vocal about it publicly. It's very interesting. But you know what? Jamar Chase, you should have paid him last offseason because the dude just won the Triple Crown, and now it's not getting any cheaper. We just saw Max Crosby break the record for the most expensive non-quarterback deal, which is going to get broken several times this offseason. But one of the times it's going to get broken, it's going to be Jamar Chase. You should have paid him last year. You just tagged T. Higgins again, right? That's like a $25 million hit. He's pissed off. If you're going to keep him, you got to give him a deal. And Trey Hendrickson's like, you know what? If I'm not going to get paid like what I'm worth, 17 sacks. You should be paid like an elite edge rusher. If he's not going to get paid what he wants, he's going to demand a trade. He's got 1 year left in his deal, right? So 3 of your top 4 players, arguably, need new deals. And you have $43 million in cap space to play with. You just released your starting guard, Alex Kappa. That's not ideal because what was the problem with Cincinnati a couple years ago, Reagan? Burrow,
the offensive line.
Yeah, Burrow was under pressure the entire time, and he was getting hurt. And it was like, you know what? We got to protect our most important player and our investment, right? Now you're starting to cut off some loose ties in the offensive line to try to pay your skill position guys. You let so many key players of your defense from a couple years ago under Lou Anarumo leave because you couldn't afford them. Now Lou Anarumo is fired. He's not even your DC anymore. He went elsewhere. And you know what? This guy was getting head coaching looks a couple years ago when they made that run to the Super Bowl, right? So I don't think Lou Anarumo is a bad coach. Just look at the talent in that defense, dude. It's barren. It's really barren. And to make matters worse, Sam Hubbard just retired as well, which I know he took a step back this year, but still, he was a veteran leader in that defense, and he made some really clutch plays for you when you won the AFC Championship. And now that leadership's gone on that side of the ball. So for me, it's a D. It was a fun team for fantasy football. If you had Jamar Chase, you had Joe Burrow, you had Chase Brown, you were really happy, and they were a fun team to watch because they were always trailing and they were always shootouts. But the reality is, with Joe Burrow as your quarterback, your Super Bowl window's open. You have Super Bowl aspirations. To not even make the playoffs is a total failure of a season. So I agree with you, Reagan. It's a D.
Yeah, and I mean, you can make a case that it should be an F. It's just hard to give a team with a winning record an F.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Especially because it's like, listen, it's not like it was the only team you might be able to do that to is the Chiefs. Outside of that, I think there's no team with a winning record that you can give an F to. I don't know, man. It's such a weird offseason. Like, I don't think they should pay T. Higgins. I really do think they should, I guess you can't. I don't know. Because it's tough because they have to pay all those guys. And it's like, if you pay all those guys, like, it just seems like they'll never be able to figure out the defense, which is such a key part. Because, I was knocking Burrow for not being able to get into the playoffs, but at least you can point to the other elite quarterbacks. They have good defenses around them. Or competent enough defenses around them. Because I wouldn't say Baltimore's defense is elite like Buffalo.
It was a top 10 scoring defense. That was not elite.
No,
number one rush defense. It was their secondary, which was the problem. But
that's But I mean, they had some holes, and they figured it out towards the second half of the year. But regardless, all those teams have the same thing in common, where they have good defenses around them. It's like, I don't know how you can ever make the defense good unless you just consistently hit on your draft picks. I feel like with their draft pick this year, you almost have to lock them in for sure for a defensive player. But at least with T. Higgins, I mean, I guess if you were to trade him, you probably would get a first rounder, right? Right?
I mean, if you look at the teams that would actually trade for T. Higgins, like the Denver Broncos at 20, like that kind of strikes my interest a little bit, right? Like they desperately need more help for Bo Nix. Like a team with a young quarterback, then there's a team New England. New England would love T. Higgins, but I don't think they want to pay him $30 million a year.
But if you're the Bengals, you don't want to send him to the AFC either, especially to a playoff team. To me, if you're going to trade T. Higgins, you have to trade him to the NFC. The AFC is so good right now. You cannot trade him.
Now I know this is a destination. This is a destination that is getting a lot of talk about DK Metcalf. But what about Green Bay Packers? Pick 23.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm the Bengals, I would trade him away to a team in the NFC. You can't trade him to the AFC. If you're in your Super Bowl window and you have to let him go, which I think they should, unfortunately, but I just think with what you would have to pay him, it's just you're never going to win a Super Bowl. I wouldn't hate Green Bay.
The Commanders would make a ton of sense, but they just traded for Debo,
Yeah, but I mean, they still have the room, and Debo's on the last year of his deal. But odds are probably not. I mean, I would say Green Bay. I mean, it's
tough, man. It's tough. Who wants to pay a guy $30 million right now and give up the draft pick? Then you're looking at teams that are higher up on the board, and you're going to be looking for a day 2 pick. A high second rounder.
Yeah, it's really Green Bay. I mean, you could say Carolina too. I mean, I'm not saying that you're going to get pick number 8 from them, but I mean, that's a team, I wouldn't hate for him. I mean, maybe,
the Raiders. The Raiders are a bad team where I think they'd be fine shipping them if they got the compensation.
Well, that's the thing. Yes. If it's a bad team, it's all right. Like you said with New England, it's all right. But I mean, Denver's literally was in the playoffs last year. So I don't think you can do that, or to any contender. But I guess, the Raiders, the Patriots, some of those teams that have a little bit of money that want to, develop. But even the Raiders, it doesn't make a lot of sense for them exactly. The Patriots is interesting because you're getting Drake May a weapon. That's one I like a little bit more because they're
but I did see the rumors that they don't want to pay him $30 million though. They weren't in his all-season plans. Now, who knows? That could not be true, right? It could not be true, but
right.
I think they're more invested in up front. I mean, I don't know. I'm also seeing that New England's desperate to add a number one receiver for Drake May.
Yeah.
Like they would probably give a bag to DK or T.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. It's tough. But I think we're both in agreement here. Like they have to get the extension done with Chase now, and you have to get a deal done with Trey Hendrickson no matter what.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you can't. I mean, he literally led the league in sacks. You can't let that guy leave. I mean,
you got to get those deals
especially
done.
if you opt to go with T. Higgins over Trey Hendrickson, it's just like, all right, so now your best defensive player that then you're like, all right, yeah, don't worry about it. Like these other guys that were the issues are going to just automatically step up. Like you got to keep the guys that are good on that defense.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think though? Like, who do you think they'll draft? Because I think it's for sure defensive player to me. I mean, I guess if there's a lineman they love there, it's possible. But to me, I think they have to go defense here.
Yeah, I think defense makes a lot of sense. I think in an ideal world, you get a guy like Jalen Walker or Jamar Stewart or a Mike Green to build up front because they need to get tougher up front. Let's be honest. They were the 25th scoring defense, 25th total. That's just not going to work for a team that wants to win a Super Bowl. And you do have some key free agents on that side of the ball. Up front, BJ Hill. On the interior, Mike Hilton on the back end. Von Bell is going to be gone again. He's not as good as he was a couple years ago when they initially let him walk. But, offensively, Mike Gesicki's also a free agent. Oh, man, it sucks because they need defense so bad. And it's like, with their cap space now, yeah, they could backload this Chase deal and this Hendrickson deal and free up some space where they could start shopping in the top of the cornerback market or trying to get an interior defensive lineman. I would love Tyler Warren on this offense. I think he'd be perfect, but it's like that's a luxury pick. It's a luxury pick.
It's different.
Yeah, it's a bit of a luxury pick if you pay T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. It's like Tyler Warren is a bit of a luxury pick, but God damn it, dude, that offense would be so sick. But you need defense, I think ideally a Jalen Walker, it would be phenomenal in that defense. That'd be the number one target for me.
I mean, you never know. Will Johnson could fall too. I mean, I've been seeing a lot of mocks.
I've been seeing that too. Will Johnson to be a home run as well.
So I don't hate that. I mean, I would say, the T. Higgins, if he does leave, then yeah, I'm more okay with them going for a luxury pick there. Or like a Luther Burden, maybe even there. It really comes down to what they do with T. Higgins. That would be the only way I'd go offense is if you're going to let him go. Defensively, I wouldn't hate, like you said, some of those good DNs, because obviously it would be nice to pair someone with Trey Hendrickson. Or if you're like, look, we don't know if he's the long-term answer for us, Hendrickson. We really don't want to pay him. We're fine with maybe trading him at the deadline. Then yeah, it makes more sense to go edge. So there's a lot of question marks right now, but I think for sure it's defense.
Yeah, and I think if you go corner, like if a Will Johnson does fall to you, or if you get one of these guys on the defensive line, because it's a really good defensive line class, it just makes too much sense for what this team needs right now.
Oh, for sure. Because I mean, like, I don't know, like what. I don't know, because I mean, with the $43 million in cap space, that doesn't leave you a whole lot, especially when you have to pay all these guys.
But it also depends on how they structure it, right? Like they could structure it in a way where they extend Hendrickson and they lower his cap hit this year, and you create more room.
I mean, are there some free agents you like right now?
Oh man, I mean, I really would like for them to get a corner. They were so bad. They were 21st against the pass, and it's like,
I mean, you got some options. You got Carlton Davis, Tre'Davious.
I know, and
Ward,
it's
DJ
also
Reed.
Like, can they shop at the top end of the market, right? Like a guy like Byron Murphy, I think can make sense. I'm seeing rumors that Jamel Dean might get released from Tampa Bay, and I'm like, you know what? I think that could make sense. A veteran presence. I would love for them to add a corner. Like, and Mike Hilton is their own guy in the slot as a free agent too, right? And it's like, are you going to bring him back? I don't know. You know what I mean? It's they need just anywhere on defense. It's so hard to predict what they can do because we haven't seen them do these deals yet. They got to take care of their own first. And, the free agency's coming up here very quickly. So we'll see what extensions they get done. But it's hard for me to be like, okay, yeah, like let's go get a DJ Reed when it's like you might have no cap
complain
space.
with them getting, going out and spending a little bit on Greenlaw from San Fran if he ultimately leaves. I
Yeah,
know
that'd be a good
an older
one.
guy that's, coming off the injury in the Super Bowl and, now he's 28, but I don't know if I don't know if he'll fetch top dollar for the linebacker position. So I wouldn't hate that at all. Another name, Asante Samuel Jr. He's a younger guy too. They could try to go get, Justin Reed at the safety. I don't hate it all either.
A guy at safety
you know,
for me, another Niner, Hufanga, right?
Yep,
Hufanga
that's
came
not
back
bad.
from injury, was not very good this year compared to, I mean, he was an all-pro a couple years back, right? And that's a guy that I think coming off the injury, not being right, that I think you could get at a cheaper price tag that makes more sense with all the extensions you have to make.
Yeah, no, I don't mind that. And another older guy who like extremely old, Calais Campbell, I think you could get on the cheap too. He's still good. I mean, he's still a
He is still
monster of a
good. He
man.
was
Like,
great for Miami.
so that's another guy. I feel like you don't have to give him a long or a big contract or a lot of money, but another guy that I think could have a big impact for them that they can get to kind of fit their spot. Because I would imagine he's only going to a contender. And even with the Bengals missing the playoffs, I still consider them a contender.
Yeah, another old head that kind of piqued my interest, Justin Simmons, entering year 10. He was really good for Atlanta, and I think for a team that probably has a higher ceiling, Cincinnati over Atlanta, I think Justin Simmons could be persuaded to come over, try to get a ring the back end of his career. And he's an older vet. You don't really see safeties, especially when you start getting the wrong side of 30, getting paid a big deal. Right. So you're kind of looking for these bargain plays where you can find him. I think Simmons is a better player than what the contract he's going to get.
Yeah, I could see that. I definitely could see this.
You like that?
I mean, there's a lot of guys I like for the Bengals, but there's
Name
a lot
anyone
of
on
dominoes.
defense. I like him for the Bengals, dude.
There's a lot of dominoes that need to fall. But you want to get Drock in here?
Yeah, let's get Drock in here. Come on, baby.
All right, Drock fell asleep at the wheel.
Drock fell asleep.
Oh,
no, Drock's here. Sorry, I don't know what the hell I didn't hear it. I was like, "What? Where's my cue at?" All right. First question coming from Walmart: are Jamar, and Trey on the roster come the start of the new season?
Jamar definitely. I would say
Trey is.
I would say either Trey or T is not. One of those two isn't. I just find it so hard to believe that they're able to pay all these guys and they're just like, yeah, let's pay them all and run it back.
What are they doing over there in Philadelphia? Because the Bengals should take notes.
Yeah, but I don't know. I guess, yeah, but it seems like they draft well. That's really what they're doing. I mean,
but they pay them.
No, I understand, but they draft well. And you could be like, but look at all these guys that have been good for the Bengals. Their top 2 players are guys they spent top 5 picks on. So it's, the Eagles are getting guys that they're developing in the 4th, 5th rounds on day 2, day 3 that they're taking shots on that just end up working out. I mean, freaking Jalen Hurts, was a 2nd round pick. I mean,
Jordan Mailata.
Yeah, Jordan Mailata. I mean, obviously they spent up on Lane Johnson, but then they bring in like a vet, a guy who didn't work out for the Jets, and Mekhi Becton, and they turn him into a beast. So it's, it's all these veterans they bring in on cheap deals in the offseason. I mean, freaking Zach Bond was an all-pro, and I know they just paid him today. So I guess the Bengals got to figure out how they can bring in some veterans with this limited money and turn around their careers, because the Eagles certainly have a knack of doing that.
Yeah, comes down to coaching. I'm going to say all 3 are on the roster week 1. And I'm going to predict that Joe Burrow is going to do a little contract restructure to clear up some more cap space to keep both T. Higgins and Jamar Chase happy. And there's no way they let Trey Hendrickson go because their defense is ass, and he's a stud. And he's probably the only stud on that defense.
Fair.
All right, now to Lino. Can the Bengals reach the bowl game once again?
Absolutely, they can. With Joe Burrow at the helm, your window's open. But the reality is you've fallen behind other teams in your conference since the last time you made it to the Super Bowl. You were considered the biggest threat to Patrick Mahomes. Now you're not. That's Josh Allen, the Bills. That's Josh Allen, the Bills, or that's Lamar Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens. Those are the upper echelon of teams in the AFC. Cincinnati's below that.
I still don't know because at the end of the day, I mean, to be a threat, I feel like you have to at least do it one of these times. I mean, at the end of the day, like Joe Burrow's got
Buffalo's a threat. They've had some very, very close games.
But still,
they're a threat. Burrow's the only one that's beat them.
The Chiefs are probably still the most worried. Like, you know, if you put all those teams in the playoffs, they're probably like the out of those three teams, they're probably like, yeah, like I'm fine with playing the Bills and the Ravens over the Bengals because, you know, the Bengals and the Bills haven't stepped up once. Or I'm sorry, the Bills and the Ravens have never stepped up and beat us, but the Bengals did. That's the only team that's gotten it done and been able to do it. So yeah, it's, you know, not the same exact roster, but at the end of the day, it's the same freaking quarterback with the same weapons. So yeah, I would still say they're the biggest threats to the Chiefs. I mean, yeah, if you're putting them against the Ravens or the Bills, I don't know if they win. I mean, I would say those teams are better on paper, and they probably do handle the Bengals. But if you're matching up with the Chiefs, right now the Bengals are the biggest threat to them because they've at least done it.
All right, I have a little breaking news live on the pod. The Chargers just released Joey Bosa. Does Joey Bosa make sense for the Bengals?
Yeah, I mean,
it makes a lot of sense for the Bengals. Let's get Joey Bosa in here to help this defense out.
That's the last question of the night. Joey Bosa fit perfectly within the Bengals.
Joey Bosa to Cincinnati. Who says no?
Maybe Bengals fans. I don't know how good he is anymore.
All right, come on. Yeah,
I mean, hey, take a chance.
But, you know, he's going to be a little hurt. But you know what? He's an upgrade over what they got outside of Hendrickson.
Yeah, probably. Maybe. I don't know. How much does he actually play? That's the question. But, you know, I mean, Bengals fans, you're at an interesting point. I mean, you know, let us know in the comments what you think. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of Bengals fans that have a lot to say. We said a lot. I'm sure there's some guys we missed that you guys want them to get in free agency. I'd be curious to see what you want them to do with T. Higgins, but also in the draft and stuff. But yeah, Colin, you got anything else to say?
No, just, you know, sign Joey Bosa, draft Tyler Warren, and let's go to war next year. And let's start off a little bit hotter so we don't have to dig ourselves out of a grave.
Yeah, Drock, can you make like a note week 1, do not take Bengals, fade the Bengals in Survivor and just betting.
Colin, if you weren't a Giants fan, would you be a Bengals fan, or you just like Joey B?
I don't think I have no reason to be a Bengals fan. You know, I
know
like
every
Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow's every year though. Every year you take him to win the Super Bowl or hype up. Does it? He rides his cock a little.
Yeah, I do like taking.
It's a little
you know
weird.
What? Because as Reagan was saying, he's the only one that's beaten Mahomes in the AFC. You know what I mean? And that's something that in the past 8 years,
it takes a special quarterback to do it, man. I mean, there's only 2 quarterbacks to ever get it done, you know, in the Super Bowl. And then Burrow's, you know, the third one. Obviously, he didn't win the Super Bowl, but he's in rare company with Hurts and Brady and Burrow. The only 3 to get past him in the playoffs.
Yeah, so that's why I like Cincinnati. You know, Joe Burrow has the clutch gene as well, which I gotta appreciate. He's also my dynasty fantasy football quarterback, so you know I do root for the Bengals. They also got Jamar Chase, so a lot of their offense I'm rooting for.
Cool, man. Well, that's fine. Turn in your Giants card, become a Bengals fan.
Nope, I don't do that, but you know. Thanks for tuning in, Felters. We'll catch you.